for coming tonight. We are going to dive right in to do my first ever Going Scared live recording here in Nashville. So welcome. Yes. Welcome to the Going Scared podcast, and I'm Jessica Honegger. So I am the co-CEO and founder of the socially conscious fashion brand Noonday Collection. And yes, that's right. I saw you guys eyeing the jewelry out there. You're like, is this for sale? And I'm like, oh yeah, girl, we got you covered. We got you covered. And right now we're in the middle of a series around the book Imperfect Courage. It has been so much fun, and it's been really fun to do a podcast series where we're literally walking through every chapter. So you guys are in luck tonight because the chapter we're covering tonight is called Embrace Vulnerability. So Nashville, I am really sorry. I just hope you're ready to go deep because we were just like diving right in. Like we were just gonna go for it. So I feel like this is a safe space. And we are going to dive right into a topic that I am extremely passionate about, which is really about vulnerability. So before we get going, though, Ashley Lemieux, Shine Project,
yes,
Amy Brown of the Bobby Bones Show.
You can call it the Amy Show.
Yeah.
No, it's the Bobby Bones Show.
It is that. I would call it the Amy Show. Okay, so why don't y'all just give a quick 101? Tell us who you are, what you do. Ashley?
Okay, so I'm Ashley. I have an online community for women called the Shine Project where we cheerlead each other on and build community. And meanwhile, we sell products that are handmade by inner city youth in America to help them go to school. So that's the gist of what we do at the Shine Project.
No big deal. Yeah.
Which is awesome.
It's awesome.
And did you say she has a shop in East Nashville, so you should go check it out.
Yeah. See, this is why I brought Amy. She's like the best promoter in the world.
It's on Fatherland. Shops on Fatherland.
We just moved out here last year. So yeah, we have a Shine Project store out in Nashville now.
So go shopping tomorrow, guys, okay?
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Ashley. Yes. Amy?
I live here in Nashville as well and co-host of the Bobby Bones Show, and that is kind of what I do by day. And then I'm also a mom of 2 kids from Haiti that we recently adopted by night. And then my other side hustle is I'm co-founder of a brand called Espoir, which means hope in Haitian Creole, which is what they speak in Haiti, my children speak. And I founded that with one of my friends. So I spend a lot of time working on Espoir, trying to give back to Haiti because it's a huge part of my life.
So these 2 ladies are world changers, for sure world changers. And I'm so honored to be in y'all's presence tonight. And I think what we're going to find in this conversation is to live this kind of life where we choose a life of purpose by leaving comfort and going scared. The going scared part really can be about vulnerability because one of the hardest things we can do is just to show up and be seen. That feels really vulnerable. But you cannot live the kind of life that these ladies are living without choosing that life of vulnerability. So because it's the Imperfect Courage series, I'm gonna do a little reading from the book. And oh my gosh, I haven't read this one out loud yet. So I'm like, okay. Get ready, everybody, for the tears, possibly, I don't know. Okay, so this is chapter 5. I cannot wait for y'all to read this book. Seriously, I'm so passionate about this message. You're gonna love it. Okay, so chapter 5 is Amy endorsed it. Ashley's read it. Sisters, I'm telling you.
Which, by the way, when Jessica asked me to endorse it, and then it comes out and I see all the other people that endorsed it and they're like, way awesome. Stop it! I was like, Brene Brown. I was like, oh my gosh. Like even some of my friends and my sister were like, what?
Stop it! They're like, Amy, oh my gosh. And it was the most kind endorsement.
No, but it was
I'm telling you, she shows up for me.
The company I was amongst, my people that really know me were like, oh, Jessica had to mix that.
She liked the book. She liked the book.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know. I mean, I felt honored, and that they were like, surely she just like somebody dropped out.
Stop it. But okay, this is Amy being vulnerable. Okay, Embrace vulnerability. Don't let my eyelash extensions and occasional spray tan fool you. I'm actually pretty crunchy at heart. Case in point, home births. I know this doesn't exactly mesh with the ball gown background of my youth, but the truth is that despite the insecurity you just read about in the previous chapter, I happen to enjoy being naked. I am from Austin, after all, where, as we say, we like to keep things weird. Plus, I don't live too far from Hippie Hollow, a public park that is legally recognized as being clothing optional. When Amelie, that's my little girl, was younger, we used to shower frequently together. One of the reasons I intentionally showered with her was so that she could see a woman who was naked and unashamed. I have one too many memories of my own mother looking in the mirror and commenting about how she wished her body were thinner. It wasn't well until adulthood that I realized that my mom was not fat, like not at all. I had looked at her through her own lens, and then I had started looking at myself through that lens too, because that's what daughters do. One evening, as Amelie and I were washing our hair, she asked me when she could start shaving her arms. Leg shaving was still years away, and with no professional swimming career in sight, something told me that an insecurity lurked. I did what all good mamas do. Internally, I freaked out. No way was my daughter going to have any insecurities. We were paving a new body image road together. So here I was, wanting to say all the right words to wash away like shampoo from our hair any insecurity Amelie may have had. Thankfully, I refrained. It wasn't necessarily my words that Amelie needed. What she needed was room to breathe. She needed space to be vulnerable. She didn't need a feminist pep talk. I backed off. Baby girl, it's okay to be insecure about something. Did you know that I have had insecurities about my body? She looked at me incredulously. I met Amelie's gaze and said, when I was really young, a couple of kids told me that I was fat. After that, I felt completely insecure about my body. And then her eyes glanced up and down my body at stretch marks acquired by carrying Holden, my 10-pound home-birth child, at pockmarks acquired by carrying all the shingle-inducing stress involved in our adoption process. And you know what she said? But Mommy, you aren't fat. I was a little relieved because, well, kids are honest. Looking at my daughter, I said, I know I'm not fat, sweetheart. But because those kids had told me with such certainty that I was, I'd chosen to believe what they said instead of simply accepting myself. I told Amelie that it had taken me years and years to get over those mean comments. And then I said, but you don't have to get stuck like I did. You don't have to accept other people's mean assessments, Amelie. And when you share your story in a safe place with someone like me, I get to unstick those stories for you. Amelie told me what had been going on. The year prior, when she'd been making Joe a greeting card, Joe, my husband, a greeting card in class at school, the kid sitting next to her saw her coloring in the hair on Joe's arms and said, oh, your arms are hairy, just like your dad's. And in that moment, that became her story, her lens, until that night in the shower, until vulnerability worked its unsticking magic. Just as my brave daughter had experienced that night in the shower, we don't truly grow until we own and live our stories in the context of other people. Am I right? I mean, Amelie could have had an aha moment when she was in the shower alone, but the revelation wouldn't have progressed her nearly as much as having it had it next to me. We can't grow without vulnerability, and we can't be vulnerable alone. And I was so proud of her that night, and it took her a while. I couldn't explain it all in the book, but that night, I really had to coax her out of really telling me what was going on. She didn't want to say it out loud, but once she said it out loud, it was like that moment that had defined her for a couple of years totally lost its power. And I believe that each of us are faced in these moments in our lives, those shower moments, where we can say it out loud, that thing that is feeling like it's keeping us in shame, or we can just stay quiet. And vulnerability is feeling our feelings. Vulnerability is showing up and being seen. And these women here have modeled so much vulnerability, both in your personal lives, also in your public lives. And so I wanted to ask Ashley about a shower moment that you've had in your life where you had that choice, am I going to show up and be seen, or am I going to stay in this place of shame?
You're not
I told
beating
you
around
guys,
the
I'm
bush. We're
sorry.
just going.
It's chapter
we're going
5.
all in right now.
I lightened it up the whole first part of the book. Now it's like deep. So here we go.
Here we go. I was thinking about this because I knew you were going to ask me this question, and recently my shower moment has happened. To give just a very quick preface to it, my husband and I were parents for several years. We had raised our children for over half of their lives. We were their legal permanent guardians. And then we went into a court battle to fight for them because of an unexpected adoption contestation. Why I just lost that word. And that whole thing was so private, and it just ate us away. And then we lost our children. And then no one publicly knew what had been going on for almost 2 years of us fighting in private. And all of a sudden now that had happened and nobody knew, and now we had lost our children, and so we had to explain. But then my shower moment was having to be like, I am suffering from major anxiety, major PTSD, major traumatic grief, and I'm not okay. And I think the hardest part of doing that, I think one of the hardest things about being vulnerable is that out loud we have to acknowledge that something's not okay. I think sometimes it's not even as hard to tell you the thing,
Right.
but it means that if I say it out loud, that I have to admit that there's something happening maybe that I'm not okay with. But what happened after I was able to start vocalizing that, it was so crazy because thousands of women, I still get messages all the time from women who have felt so lonely in their depression and their grief, or so lonely with traumatic things that have happened in their lives, who say thank you for saying something, and thank you for helping me now learn tools that will help me get through this. But man,
Yeah.
it's hard to take that first.
To say it out loud.
To say it out loud, yeah.
But now that you've said it out loud, you become a place of healing for others as well.
And a place of healing for yourself.
Right.
You don't have to something I found is I don't have to keep running anymore.
Right.
When you're vulnerable and when you can get to that place, you don't have to keep running from who it is that you are or the things that have happened, because you can take it as it is and sit with it and let it teach you and be like, this is my life and it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. Amy, what about you?
Well, I think just to piggyback off of that for a second, I think when you're running from it, it's so exhausting.
Right.
It's really taxing.
Yeah.
It'll take a toll not only on you, but on all of your relationships. So I feel like my job has given me a platform, and not all radio shows are like this, but the people I work with, especially Bobby, he has wanted an authentic environment where you can share. We don't just cover the news or the fun stuff or the Hollywood stories. Like, we really try to give our personal life and we share it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So there's some stuff that I don't really tap into on the air too much, though, because it's not like I'm in a room full of the guys, and some of it's pretty sensitive. So this is stuff that I've shared with family and friends that I've had to be vulnerable about, because that's another space. Because not everybody has a platform to be vulnerable that can be relatable. But if you're going through something, I think finding those key people, whether it's your best friend or your mom or your sister or someone you meet somewhere that you just connect with, like having that place to go. For me, and this kind of even ties into stuff that you'll read in Jessica's book, but body image stuff is huge. And for me, my dad left. I don't even know that mine was body image related, because it really had to do with my dad, and therapy has taught me that.
Yes.
But my dad left when I was 8 years old, and left my mom for someone else, and they got married, and then in high school, I developed an eating disorder and didn't really know why or where it was coming from. Like, I didn't even really understand what I was doing. I can't even really recall. And I still, to this day, it perplexes me. Like, where did I first hear of, I had bulimia. Where did I ever first hear of throwing up? When did I ever think that, okay, if I eat all this, then I can just go throw it up? And then was it at school? Were the girls talking about it? Was it a movie? Like, I don't even know. But for whatever reason, that was very therapeutic to me. And I felt awesome when I did it. And then I felt awful. And then I felt awesome. And then I felt awful. And I couldn't take it anymore one day. I literally couldn't take it anymore. And the person I chose to go to was my mom. And it was really hard for me to do that because I didn't want her to think like she had let me down because, I didn't really know what it was. But really, honestly, a lot of my binge and purge situations would happen at my dad's house when he was not there. But that was where I would sort of emotionally didn't know what the heck to do. And then I would just eat and eat and eat, and then I would feel awful, and then I would throw up, and then I'd feel great, and then it was a cycle. So I went to my mom, and she was amazing because it was a no judgment space. She immediately wanted to help me figure out what this was. She contacted some friends she knew that had eating disorder. She didn't personally, so she's like, I can't relate. But she, hooked me up with some, like a mentor type situation who had been through that. So anyway, that was my go-to. And then I was healed from it. And it took me having to confess that instead of hiding from it, because it was just so miserable, to finally get better. And then by the time I got married, it wasn't even a part of my life. And I got married in my young 20s, but this seemed like a distant memory to me. And so I thought, well, this is great, but it's almost like you're an alcoholic, right? And I didn't learn this until recently. So you kind of get your chip, and you've got your chip for 5 years, 10 years. For me, I think I probably had it for, 12 or 13 years. And I've been married for maybe 8 years. And so my husband doesn't know this life of me. Now, he knew my story, but he never lived with me like that, which when you have that going on and it's such a secretive thing, it's toxic. And he didn't have that in our space. And then about 4 years ago, my mom died. And I had been fine. And literally, my mom died on October 27th, 2014. And on October 28th, I ate something and I threw up. And there's nothing you could do to stop me from that happening. I didn't even eat a lot. It was my sister's birthday. Whole nother thing, having your sister have a birthday the day after your mom dies and people wanting to have a party because it was weird. It really was. It was awkward. But we had a celebration because that's what my mom would want. And there was food and we ate, and I really hadn't eaten in a couple of days because my mom was in hospice care at my sister's house, and she died by her side, so it was a whole thing, you don't really eat. And I ate, and then I threw up. And then all of a sudden I had this thing back in my life that had a hold of me. And it clearly was a traumatic, after more therapy, realized that as a child, that's how I dealt with my trauma. So then also as a 33-year-old who hadn't had that in her life, who instantly had one of the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to me, losing my mom, instantly back the next day. And I literally didn't even know how to, I don't even know how to tell you how it happened. It's not like it wasn't thought out. It just was part of my thing. So instantly, my next vulnerable moment that ties into this is I didn't want to be that person because I knew how awful it was. So I had to get help. I had to tell my husband. I mean, I haven't even shared this part on the show. I don't even know that this show, this is stuff we would normally talk about. And if it ever organically comes up and there's a space for that, on the show, yes, years ago, I've talked about previous eating disorder stuff, but But the fact that, something can happen in your life and then something from when you were a kid comes back and then you have to be vulnerable again. It's
but
like,
you didn't
gosh,
die.
dog it.
I think we think, okay, we're at that moment where we're like, it's like I'm wondering what keeps us from wanting to speak that truth, because it's obvious that once we speak that truth, that's where the healing is. When you speak that truth and then someone else receives you with compassion and with empathy, that's where the transformation happens. So what do you think that fear was? Because you have an awesome marriage. You've been married to your husband for years. What do you think it was in you that was like, that made you afraid?
Well, he hadn't seen that side. I feel like he'd seen all sides of me and he kind of knew. But to know, and it's not like, for me, I don't know. I don't want to rank, okay, this is going to sound bad. Eating disorders are just bad. Like, I don't want to rank the stuff. But I feel like it would be a lot easier for me to tell him, like, gosh, I haven't eaten in 5 days. I just haven't been able to eat. Well, that would be bad. That's not healthy. But when you're depressed and you have stuff going on, I was sad I lost my mom. I got down to like 108 pounds, which for me is not healthy. Like, zero, like now I'm like 125, like that's my healthy range, like sometimes 130 on a, like now I like to be strong.
On a donut day.
On a donut day. I like to lift weights, but like.
We're having a lot of donuts day during this book tour, let me just tell you.
I'm into that, but I think I was just scared, like, was he gonna love me? I knew that was a lie, because like, of course he's gonna love me, but is he gonna be grossed out by me? Because it's like, here I am coming to be like, I don't know. I just ate and I threw up. And it didn't just happen that night, obviously. It started to continue to turn into a pattern, and it was unhealthy, and it's been a journey. And now I'll say I'm on a healthy track. I feel like I got my chip back. Like we're
yes,
like
chip is back.
whatever.
Yes,
like we're
doing
it. But it's I had to, and I will say he's been amazing. I think knowing, if you have an amazing partner to be with you on these tough roads, like if you have someone, like, it's scary to go to them, but gosh, like if you can't go to them, you probably need to figure some other stuff out. Right? Because luckily that's who I felt like I needed to go to. Other people may have a best friend, and I have some close girlfriends and like my sister that know the situation, but it's once I said it and I had that release and I knew I had him for accountability and no judgment and like just a safe space. That feels so much better than just hiding.
Right. Well, the thing is, we are wired for connection. All of us want to be seen. All of us want to be known. That is common to all of humanity. And yet we can't be seen and known if we're not showing up and being who we are and embracing all of the story, not just like the pretty shiny version that we think our husband wants, but just the messiness of it all, the imperfection of it all. And so to have that moment of courage to say, I'm just going to let the cards fall where they may. And in that safe space where he's like, I love you, we're going to pick up the pieces together. That's that moment of healing that you're able to have. And, it's so crazy that we're talking about this, because I actually had not read the chapter previous to just reading it to y'all right now. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that chapter. Then I was like, oh, it's body image. Like just right then when I was reading out loud.
Well, I knew that because I read it, but.
Yeah, because you did your prep work. I was like, oh,
well,
damn, I'm like having to talk about this chapter right now in front of all these people. I did write a book, and now everyone's like, thousands of people are reading it. But it was so funny because Amy and Ashley and I were just out there getting our picture taken together, and I was putting my arms around them. I was like, oh my God, I'm sandwiched between these tiny little girls. And I think years ago that could have triggered like a shame for me. And I think years ago I would have been like, girl, you look great. And now it's like, no, that's not what it's about. It's not about comparing our suffering. It's not about, comparing our bodies. It's not about comparing our circumstances. It's just about showing up and receiving our story with empathy and thinking, you know what, I'm here, I'm listening, I'm creating this space. And I think that if we can't show up and be seen, we're not gonna have that connection that we long for. This is this is not as hard as bulimia, but even in my own story of starting Noonday Collection, I felt this sense of like, I don't have an MBA, I don't really have any money, And I literally posted a picture actually today on Instagram of the day that I went and pawned my gold jewelry at a pawn shop to fund Noonday Collection's first website. And there's a lot of you here that actually don't know what Noonday Collection is, but we're a socially conscious fashion brand, and we create economic opportunity for people living in really, really vulnerable parts of the world. And we do that through a group of ambassadors here in America. These are social entrepreneurs who are earning an income while also creating an impact. And when I started Noonday, it was born out of sheer desperation. I mean, we were completely financially broke. We were putting money on credit cards. Actually, I was at the Dave Ramsey station here like a month ago, and I thought I was gonna get struck by lightning because I remember during that time, I don't know, was that like, did he have a show or something? And I was just like, credit cards like don't even have credit cards. And I was like, I don't know what to do without a credit card right now. We wouldn't be eating. Oh my God, I did not get struck by lightning, and I'm on one of their shows, so it's fine. I love you, Dave. I wouldn't recommend doing what we did, but I knew that we had a little guy for us, waiting for us in Rwanda. And so there was a lot on the line. There was a lot at stake. I knew that we were supposed to grow our family through adoption because y'all heard I had a 10-pound child at home. I am not gonna do that again. Like, no thank you. I didn't actually say this in the book. See, I didn't fully show up. I'm just gonna say it right now. It was like 10 pounds, like 15 ounces. He was almost 11 pounds. I think I said 10 pounds in here. Anyway, yeah. But I still, like, because of my body image issues, like I had issues about even telling people my kid's weight, which is supposed to be like this happy, beautiful, like, here's my baby announcement. Instead, I'm like, see? I mean, anyway, so.
You're like, he was 6 pounds.
Yeah, exactly. No, y'all, the day he was born, my parents, and they're at my house. They weren't like witnesses or anything like that, because I'm not that crazy. But we had the little infant diapers, and my dad had to leave and go get the second stage of the diapers for my kid. He was just this giant. He's still giant. He is a giant person. Adorable and giant. And so there's these different parts of my story that I hid. So when Noonday started getting some traction, I would go, maybe I'd be in an entrepreneurial space where there's like VC funding, or maybe their businesses are much bigger than mine. And I did not tell anyone for years that I pawned my gold jewelry at a pawn shop, like shopped around 5 different pawn shops in Austin with sweaty palms in order to fund our first website. Because I thought, you know what? I got to look better than that. Like, I got to look like I have it more together than that. And I remember even when I started traveling and going to New York and LA for maybe like fashion events or scouting out trends, I would hide the fact that I was from Texas, because I'm like, Texas people don't really do fashion. Like, I need to like...
Jessica, as a fellow Texan, I'm ashamed.
I am so ashamed, especially like you have such mad fashion style. Love your style. Okay.
I have help. I don't.
Oh, it's amazing.
I have friends that know what they're doing, not me. But,
yeah, okay. So there were just so many times where I just hid. I hid. And in that, the shame festered. And I remember when I started coming out and I started sharing the pawn shop story, and people were like, really? Oh my gosh, that's amazing, you know? And it's like people love the messiness. And as I look back and I think, why was I hiding? And I think I was just living into what I wanted other people to perceive of me. And it's like the hustle, like what you're saying, it's exhausting, because then you're just putting up these fronts. You're not experiencing the connection that you really long for. And then ultimately you're just like living your fake story. You're not showing up and being seen.
I'm going to interrupt this conversation for just a hot second. We have been having so much fun on these Imperfect Courage book tours. I meet so many Going Scared listeners at every single one. We have decided to add 4 more book stops: Grand Rapids, Waco, Washington, D.C., and Colorado. So please, if you live in any of these towns, or if you know someone who does, hop on over to my website, jessicahonegger.com, get you some tickets. These have been so much fun. And make sure you hop on over to Amazon and buy Imperfect Courage. You guys, this book is going to transform your life like it's already transformed the thousands that have bought it. We made the 24th best book in the nation its first week of release. don't miss out. I want you to be a part of this message, especially during this podcast series. All right, we're about to get even more real. So let's hop on right back into this conversation with Ashley and Amy.
So I'm curious, what are some of the things that you think prevent us from showing up and being seen like that?
Well, first of all, I'm going to answer a different question first that I'm making up in my head right now.
That's a good PR
because
move.
when
You
you're
just answer the question you really want to
answer in 1 second.
Go for it, Ashley.
But as I'm listening to you say this, we look at Jessica as a leader and this powerful businesswoman and this world changer, right? And so we do ourselves a disservice when we don't fully express or accept our story and where we come from. Like that takes so much power and hustle and motivation and determination to be able to rise out of circumstances like that. Like, I think you're even so much cooler than I already did, knowing where you started.
Right.
And so I think we have the opportunity to fully live in our stories, because when we fully live in our stories, then that means we can fully accept ourselves as who we are and who we were created to be, and who we were created to be are powerhouse women who can rise up.
Yes.
And so let's tell that part of the story, because that's the most exciting part. But I think that maybe we shy away from that because it's scary.
Right.
And we don't want to admit it, and we don't know what you're going to think or she's going to think, because I think a lot of times in our own minds, we tell ourselves our own false narratives and we jump to the worst case scenario and we're our own worst critics. And so if I feel like this about me, then she's going to think I'm even crazier than I already think that I am.
We're worried about the judgment. And the thing is like there's a little reputation I've heard among women that we can side-eye and compare and judge each other. I don't know if y'all have ever heard that about us, but
we don't do that.
But honestly, that's such a huge part of my book, y'all, is like we can change the current. Like when we start making generous assumptions, or when Amy shares her body image story, instead of comparing it to my own story, I'm just like creating a compassionate space for her. That is what is going to change the current and the reputation among women. And, this book has my name on it, but honestly, I love the Maya Angelou quote. It says, "I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. And the only reason I'm here today is because I am standing with 10,000 people around the globe. I mean, you guys showed up for this tonight. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this whole showing up thing, because something that was super vulnerable for me was to ask you guys to actually be a part of the night.
Which kills me.
Because,
That would...
we are terrible about asking people for help. I mean, how many of you guys just love calling and saying, I'm really having a hard day and I need your help? I mean, it's like, so we don't want to be perceived as weak. We don't want to put someone out. For me, I'm like, if I ask them for help, like I want to be able to pay them back. Like I want to get them back somehow, and I don't know what I have to give. I mean, it is terrible. Y'all, Amy and I, I'm gonna tell the story.
Go for it.
So a couple weeks ago, I was like, Amy, ticket sales just aren't quite where we want to be. And I was like, we're going to be more aggressive about the marketing plan. And she was like skimming. She was like skimming the text. She was like, you want me to be more aggressive? Like, what can I do? And
I thought that and it didn't sound like her language. So that's why I was like, even my language to her, I was like, Jessica, I was like, you just used the word aggressive. But text can be really tricky. So then I read back my text to her and I'm like, that sounded aggressive. So I immediately fired off 5 more texts after that, being like, okay. And then the more I typed, the more I was like, this just isn't sounding right. So I almost wanted to pick up the phone and call, and then I was like, that's just being dramatic, because
getting on the phone is so dramatic these days.
Because we can just text. It's fine, but you never know someone's text tone. So it's always so hard, but
apparently mine is aggressive, is my text tone.
But then Jessica was like, no, that's not really and then I went back and I reread it fully, and I was like, oh, I mean, I get what she's saying now, and she's not, but my personality took it as, and then Jessica tried to Enneagram me. She tried to guess my Enneagram number, and I was like, did you just guess my Enneagram? Who's taking the Enneagram?
I swear.
Actually, we're gonna have
only people in Nashville and Austin even know what that was.
Okay, Nashville and Enneagram is into
They meet you, they're like, what number are you? What are you talking
Yes,
about?
we're finally doing a whole Enneagram episode for Going Scared with Suzanne Stabile.
Oh, yes.
We can come out finally and talk fully about it. I've been holding back on my podcast because I didn't want my listeners to be like, Ashley, like, what on earth are you talking about?
Well, I know now because I live in Nashville.
Well, now I finally can say refer to episode this and then go for it.
So I won't derail the podcast with the Enneagram, but you can Google it.
Yeah.
And, it was a funny back and forth with Jessica, but similar with you, like Jessica, you are someone that has shown up. You're doing great things. Like for you to come to us, I mean, if we're available or if someone's available, like if you don't ask, you don't know. Like to me, it wasn't even an issue. And I don't feel like for a second that you owe anybody anything. I feel like organically when you show up for someone else is going to show up for you. It's not always going to be like equal with
exchange,
that person, but it's
right.
just going to end up being equal in some way. I mean, it may be
It's the
like
whole we
a
all
couple
rise
years
together.
from now. Yeah, we
Yeah.
rise together. We just support each other and like do your thing and we can't be intimidated by each other. And we can't be, because I feel like there sometimes can be this thing, and I even felt that, not because Jessica, she's not intimidated. She doesn't put that out there.
She's not aggressive.
You're not aggressive or intimidating, but I would say a few years ago, you invited me to a retreat at your ranch, and I was like, OMG. Like, that, I was like, is she sure? Like, again, same thing with the endorsement. I was like, is this the right Amy Brown? Because there are some other Amy Browns we know, like mutually. Like sometimes I get email. Yeah, we have mutual friends that and Amy Brown like works with them, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm the other Amy Brown.
Okay.
But you asked me to come out there with your friends and it was a very intimate thing, and it was a lot of people a handful of girls I really look up to.
Right.
Like older, wiser, not significantly older, not older.
Okay, we're cool.
But more life experiences.
I get it. I got you.
And
girl.
I have to admit, like, I probably asked like a handful of people, like, do you think I should go? Because like I'm probably just gonna sit there like, And I mean,
awesome.
I really appreciated that.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I feel like you gave me that weekend, which was really special.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you probably don't even know what a gift that was.
Right.
And that was a few years ago. And so, I mean, I'm just paying
But
you back
let's
for
talk
that.
Great. Okay, so we're like, debt is canceled now. We're like, we're equal.
We're equal. That's what I'm saying. You just never know when
I know,
you're-
it's
when
ridiculous.
you're-
Listen, I'm not saying that this is a good thing, guys. I'm just being vulnerable. Like, that's what tonight's about. So, but let's talk about this asking thing, because in one hand, I can be afraid to ask for people to show up for me. But then on the other hand, there's times when I'm like, like right now, guys, I am sorry if you're following me on Instagram, because I have no problems asking you to buy my book right now. And it's because I'm so passionate about this message. And I have no problem saying, do you want to become an ambassador and join our community? Do you want to host a trunk show? Because I am so passionate about the change that can make. So like that ask I'm not afraid at all about that. So let's talk about some times where we're just like, when we show up for our ask, because I know you have one with Bobby. That's how you even got your job. Can you think of a time when you just you don't have any problems asking people to help you out?
Oh no, I have a lot of problems asking people to help me out. But I think, oh man, I remember, I'll use a motherhood example. So when I was a mom and then also going to work and like doing all the things, and I felt like the wheels on my bus were just going to roll off and I was going to explode. I remember I would come home from work and there would be housework that I would have to do, and I would just think, I cannot be the person to do this. And my sister sat me down one day and she said, Ashley, if you don't figure this out, you're driving us all crazy. You have to figure it out. And one of her simple solutions was, why don't you hire a house cleaner? And I was like, well, I don't want to do that, because if I have to go ask for a house cleaner, that means I'm failing in my home. That means that I'm not capable of doing all of these things, and I want to be capable of doing all of these things because I can,
unicorn. Yeah.
right? And so yeah, I am.
Do you have a housekeeper number? I need.
I do.
You don't. Okay. Okay. Well, like after the show.
Yeah, so it was just, I remember getting to that point though, where I was like, you know what? I cannot do everything and I cannot be good at everything. And that is okay. And I'm still as important as I was yesterday when I thought that I could do everything. And so asking for help, I think, also allows us to live in a space where we can do the things that we are good at and thrive at. I also think, like you said, when you ask me to be involved, I feel like it's my privilege and honor to be here with you. And when we get to ask other women, I think, for help too, we get to create a space where they can use their talents and what they're good at to rise up. And then all together, if we're all doing the things that we're good at, I mean, that's how we take over the world. That's how change happens.
Amen, sister. Yes, this is how it happens, right here.
Air five.
Air five.
I'll just do the.
Okay, so
Wait, I feel like this
asking,
needs
by
to
the
happen.
way, I also speak to, I really love to free women up to hire a housekeeper if it's in your budget. Even if it's not in your budget, I was willing to go without anything. I would do anything for that. And now it is my great honor when a woman comes up to me and she's like, you have freed me up. So you are gonna release so many people right now that are in that same place that just feel like it's an indictment. People think it's an indictment.
I think it's important for women to acknowledge that depending on how you grew up, I don't know everybody's story. But I think sometimes when you go into a marriage or relationship or you have these expectations as a child of what you saw or what you saw maybe in your church, for example, as what a woman's role was supposed to be and kind of what was put into your head. And for me, I feel like I grew up in sort of that way. So it is very freeing to hear other women say you can have a career, you can work, you can have kids, and you can continue to work. And this has evolved for me because when I was first married, when I was pretty firm in the fact that when we got kids, I was not going to work because that is what you did was raise your kids, period. And
As if you can't also work and raise your
No,
kids. It was
not
like
in my
this
mind.
mutually exclusive thing.
No, Bobby and I used to argue about it on air. He'd be like, this is ridiculous. And I said, well, just so you know, when I get pregnant, I'm quitting. I quit the show probably, at least twice.
On air.
One time I walked off on air, but that's another time. We've gotten over some of those bumps. But I think it's important since we do have women here and you're addressing that, it can be very freeing to hear from working women that are out doing it, entrepreneurs or people that work for other people or people that are hustling or if you've got something you're really passionate about and you don't have time to dedicate to cooking and cleaning, maybe that's not your jam. I realized recently once I got kids, I thought I was gonna cook all the time. I just realized it's not my jam.
and it's okay if it is. My sister's the complete opposite, where growing up, she would, we'd be playing house, and she would be the mom with all the babies, and her dream has always been to have all the babies, to stay home and do those things that drive me nuts that I'm not really good at. And and that's the best news, is that we get to choose what it is that we want to do, but we also need to work no matter what that is, that we're not ashamed in that, and we just go full speed.
Yeah, we're not ashamed because when we're shamed, we shame others. And so if we're feeling shame, then we shame the other mom for staying at home, or we shame the other mom for working. I've had that similar thing. I'm so sorry, but I used to shame mom that I used to shame moms in my head who worked and were parenting littles.
Guilty. But here's the tricky
hate
thing.
admitting that.
And I talk about this on air, so it's not a thing. But on Instagram or however it appears, when you're following people and you're like, how in the world are they doing it all? I don't get it. Well, you know what I don't ever put on Instagram? And I have this because my husband works, I work. We both work full-time jobs. Now, we have children. They're in school. Yes. So there's options. There's daycare, there's family that can step in and help, or there's a nanny, which sounds like such a weird word rolling off my tongue because I never thought I would have one. But you know what you don't ever see on my Instagram is my nanny.
Right.
And she's pretty awesome. We're actually on the third one in less than 7 months. But
It's going really well for you then.
Nanny, let's hope she sticks.
That's that's another story, not my fault. But, you know, you can't compare yourself to other women thinking they're superwoman or something when, you know, obviously if I didn't have a job, we wouldn't have the nanny. Like, that doesn't make sense. But I do. So my husband and I, we had to come up with a plan to figure out how we were going to keep our
We're not shaming
jobs.
you if
We're
you
not
stay
shaming
at
you if you
home
say,
and have a nanny.
No.
Because there are women who do that.
oh my God, did I just shame? Shoot.
It's okay.
I mean, that's okay. Like, if you can do that, like, high five. High five. My sister, she's like got 4 kids. She's a stay-at-home mom. She cooks every night. Her house is always clean. She doesn't have a maid.
It's like the perfect crafts that are like planned out for 2 weeks.
yeah.
So the activities
She
are done
homeschooled
every hour of the
at
day.
one
You're
point.
like, yeah.
She's like
better
Martha
than
Stewart.
Disneyland at their house. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, like, I got kids, and so I thought, well, we're related, so this is clearly just going to ooze out of me. And then, like, it's not. Like, I'm not Martha Stewart. And that's okay. And I think it helps to have permission.
Really?
It came as a shock to me because growing up, I just knew my role.
Right.
Or what I thought
You
my
thought it
role
would
was.
just click when the kids came home. Which
And then-
they've been home like not even a year.
No, it's been 7.5 months.
Yeah, okay.
So,
It's
but
not gonna
even
click
for
at
my
this point.
husband, it was like he had certain expectations, I think, built into his mind. I don't want to say brainwashed.
I don't mind saying
But I
saying
mean,
it.
sometimes I feel like we both grew up, we went to the same church, like, we both had the same, like, weird stuff. Like, we go to it, I don't want to call our church weird. Everybody was really nice there. But, like, we're not as, like, as we grew up. Like,
Yeah.
we're a little bit more, like,
Yeah.
love you, Jesus, but, like, you know,
Right.
we're progressive.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You love Jesus and you cuss a little.
I don't cuss.
Really?
I really don't.
Yeah, we've talked about this actually.
But that's not a thing. It's just I just don't. Like, stuff happens and it
just doesn't come out. It just doesn't roll off your
come
tongue.
out. Apparently I cussed a lot when I was a little kid because both my parents cussed, but
Okay.
I just have stories,
Okay.
but like major potty mouth, like F word. But that's my dad. My dad cusses all the time. And I don't know if maybe growing up I just was like, ew, Dad. And but it's not a thing.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I say, it's like, darn. Oh, shoot.
You can keep your
I know.
pure mouth.
But I mean, that's not because I'm trying to be pure. That's not, I mean, I could start. Should I start? Okay.
No, actually, I have this beautiful Tina Fey quote in the book, and my publisher asked me to like change her quote to clean it up a little. I was like, no, I'm sorry. I'm not touching with Tina Fey. I'm like not messing with Tina Fey. So yeah, we went all in for this book. But I just love this idea of creating an environment where we become askers. Can we just all give each other permission tonight? Like, I want y'all to think about that tonight. Where is a place of need that you have right now in your life, and how are you going to ask for help? And that is your Going Scared moment. This is called the Going Scared podcast, and I want you to think of a place. I want you to think of a place of shame. Like, what's your shower moment? You know, I just think about my daughter that night, and I'm going to read this story, the end of this chapter, and I just think, what would have happened had she not been able to be vulnerable with me that night? If you're longing to leave a life of safety for a life of risk, meaning, and impact, then please read this carefully. You cannot get there on your own. You, even you, were made for community. To flourish, we must work with, not against, togetherness. And to prize togetherness, we must come out of isolation and be seen. Regardless of whether you fear being perceived as weak, or you think that you will be a burden to others, or you don't know if you can return the favor, or you are afraid that people will say no, or you are afraid that your need is excessive and, well, needy, choosing self-reliance and isolation is never, ever the better bet. While it may indeed be safer to curl up on the couch for the West Wing reruns night after night That is hardly the life that you were made for. It's not at all what flourishing means. My friend, you and I cannot serve in a context of isolation. We cannot give in a context of isolation. We cannot grow in a context of isolation. We cannot truly live all by ourselves. And so here we are at vulnerability's doorstep, knowing that we simply must let it in, because it's in the safety of each other's vulnerability that we finally find the healing we've so frantically and desperately sought. I think back on Amelie's insecurity, the one she shared with me in the shower that day. For months and months, she swore me to secrecy regarding the exact nature of the pain that she bore. A year after all this happened, I was preparing a keynote talk for a conference. I got to a certain point in my outline and thought, oh, Amelie's story would be such a great fit here. I found Amelie to ask for her permission. Sure, Mom, she said, but I forget. What was it again that I was so upset about? That moment for me is framed. She no longer felt any shame. It was gone. Until this beautiful moment, I hadn't realized how much shame lost its power that night in the shower. This is the beauty of vulnerability and empathy, my friend. The me too we hear when we are brave enough to invite vulnerability in, it heals us every time. So that is my invitation to you tonight. And some of you guys came alone tonight, which honestly I think is such a going scared thing. At every tour stop, people have come alone, and I don't want anyone to leave alone, okay? Raise your hand if you came alone tonight. Just raise it high. Okay, right over here, guys. Do not let these sisters leave alone tonight. And brother, we have a brother too. Thank you, brother. Don't leave alone. And I just want you to invite you into this life. And if you're thinking like, I don't even know what this is, like I'm running around with a group of friends, we're all just trying to like live into each other's perceptions. We're all just trying to carry the right bag and say the right things in order to just not feel rejected. I'd love to tell you about our community at Noonday Collection, our community of ambassadors. We are a sisterhood. We believe in second tries and going scared, and we really embrace vulnerability. And so I just wanted to thank each of you guys for coming tonight for our first ever Going Scared podcast live. Yes, awesome. It'll air in a couple weeks, and so you guys can spread the word. And thank you so much, Ashley and Amy. Are they not the real deal? I mean, it's one thing to be vulnerable with a friend, but you guys show up and are vulnerable in a very public space. And you know, when you go first in vulnerability, it begets vulnerability because courage is contagious. And courage and vulnerability to me are one and the same. And so courage is contagious. So thank you for letting us all be ignited by your courage tonight and just how you show up in the world. I love how I experience you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Feelings mutual. I feel like she needs a huge round of applause, right?